The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Earth's deep space monitoring stations detected the anomaly first, a distortion in space near Jupiter's orbit. Within hours, sleek obsidian vessels emerged from the rift, their surfaces reflecting starlight like polished glass. They moved with impossible precision, accelerating toward Earth at speeds that defied human physics. General Mark Davis stood rigid in the Pentagon's Emergency Command Center, surrounded by screens tracking the alien armada's approach. His weathered face revealed nothing, but his knuckles turned white as he gripped the edge of the tactical display. "Time to intercept," he asked. 18 hours, sir," replied Lieutenant Anna Ford, her eyes never leaving her monitor. "They've bypassed all our outer system defenses without slowing down." World leaders gathered in an emergency United Nations session, while military forces worldwide went to high alert. Civilian broadcasts continued normally. No reason to cause panic yet. Scientists and linguists worked frantically to prepare first contact protocols. The aliens made communication unnecessary. When their fleet reached Earth orbit, they positioned ships over major cities with clinical precision. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, New Delhi, all found themselves beneath the shadow of massive vessels that hovered silently, just beyond the reach of Earth's defensive systems. Then came the transmission. It bypassed all encryption, appearing simultaneously on every digital device on the planet. The message was simple and delivered in perfect English by a tall figure with metallic blue skin and eyes like burning coals. "People of Earth, we are the Valkyrie Imperium. Your world is now under our protection and authority. Your conflicts will end. Your resources will serve a greater purpose. Your existence will find meaning through service. Resistance is unnecessary and will result in correction." In the White House Situation Room, President Laura Wilson watched the broadcast with her advisors. "They didn't even bother asking," she said quietly. "Standard colonial approach," said Dr. Robert Tanner, the government's leading xenoanthropologist. "They're treating us like we're primitive. They don't see us as equals worth negotiating with." "Are they wrong?" asked Defense Secretary James Howard. "Their ships crossed distances we can barely comprehend. Our most advanced weapons might not scratch their paint." The Valkyrie commander continued, his voice smooth and reasonable. "Earth will provide raw materials and biological samples according to our requirements. All military installations will be decommissioned. A governance council will be established to manage the transition." The alien's expression remained neutral, almost benevolent. "This arrangement benefits all. The Imperium brings order to chaos, purpose to wandering species. You have 48 Earth hours to begin compliance procedures." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving billions staring at blank screens. General Davis watched satellite imagery of the alien vessels, his mind racing through options. None seemed promising. Earth's most powerful missiles would take hours to reach orbit, plenty of time for the aliens to intercept them. "Get me a secure line to Lunar Command," he ordered suddenly. Lieutenant Ford looked up in surprise. "Sir, Lunar Command was decommissioned years ago according to official records." Davis smiled thinly. "Exactly according to records. Beneath the lunar surface, in facilities unknown to the public and hidden from orbital scans, Commander Lisa Reyes received the encrypted message. She read it once, then looked up at the massive hangar stretching before her, filled with sleek warships that officially didn't exist. "So it finally happened," she said to no one in particular. Then louder, "Sound General Quarters. Operation Thunderbolt is now active." The Valkyrie had demanded Earth's submission. They were about to learn humanity's answer. Commander Lisa Reyes walked through the massive underground hangar of Lunar Base Artemis, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. Around her, hundreds of technicians and crew members rushed to prepare the fleet, humanity's best-kept secret and final defense. "Status report," she ordered, approaching the command platform where her senior officers gathered around holographic displays. "All vessels at 93% readiness," replied Captain Jack Torres, her second in command. Weapons systems fully operational. Stealth systems engaged. Reyes nodded, studying the tactical display showing Earth and the positions of the Valkyrie ships. For 20 years, the world's major powers had secretly pooled resources to build this fleet, hidden from their own citizens, and they hoped, from any watching eyes among the stars. The Phantom Protocol worked, observed Major David Wells, head of intelligence. They have no idea we're here. Their scans are focused on Earth's surface military installations. The lunar base had been built in stages, disguised as a series of scientific outposts and mining operations. The fleet itself consisted of 40 warships, from nimble fighters to the massive dreadnought Defiance that served as the fleet's flagship. Each incorporated reverse-engineered technology from a crashed alien scout ship discovered in the Arctic Circle decades earlier. On the main screen, they watched the Valkyrie ships maintaining their positions above Earth. "They're so confident," Reyes said quietly. "They don't even have defensive formations." She turned to her communications officer. "Any word from General Davis?" "Just received, Commander. Earth governments are officially preparing compliance statements to buy time. Unofficial channels confirm Operation Thunderbolt is greenlit." Reyes took a deep breath. "Send the activation code to all sleeper cells." Across Earth, in seemingly ordinary facilities, weather stations, research outposts, commercial satellite offices, men and women received the coded message and began activating hidden defense systems. Anti-orbital batteries disguised as communications arrays powered up. Electromagnetic pulse generators buried beneath major cities hummed to life. "What about Project Blackout?" Torres asked. "Ready," replied Dr. Emily Chen, Chief Science Officer. She pulled up schematics of a small device. The quantum field disruptor should temporarily disable their communications and targeting systems, but will only get one shot before they adapt. In the crew quarters section of the base, Lieutenant Mike Reynolds finished recording a message to his family on Earth. Like everyone serving on this secret mission, he'd told his loved ones he was working on a classified deep space mining operation. Now, facing actual combat, many crew members were leaving final messages, just in case. "Attention all personnel." Reyes's voice came through the base-wide communication system. "This is the moment we've trained for. In 6 hours, we launch Operation Thunderbolt. The Valkyrie believe Earth stands alone and defenseless. They expect submission." She paused. "Instead, they'll get the full force of humanity's resolve." Throughout the base, crew members moved with renewed purpose. Pilots ran final checks on their fighters. Weapons specialists loaded advanced missile systems. Engineers monitored the experimental engines that would give them the element of surprise. On the bridge of the Defiance, Reyes studied the Earth hanging in the blackness of space, partially shadowed by the alien vessels. "They came expecting an easy conquest," Torres said, standing beside her. "Yes," Reyes replied, her voice hardening. "But humanity has never been conquered easily." Below on Earth, as the Valkyrie ultimatum ticked toward its deadline, billions of humans waited, unaware of the fleet preparing to fight for them. The aliens had calculated Earth's visible military strength perfectly. What they hadn't accounted for was humanity's capacity for secrecy, preparation, and fierce determination when backed into a corner. In the darkness of the lunar far side, engines began to glow as the fleet prepared to reveal itself, not in surrender, but in defiance. With 12 hours remaining on the Valkyrie ultimatum, Earth's public face showed submission while its hidden forces prepared for war. President Wilson stood before the United Nations General Assembly, her speech broadcasting globally. "The Valkyrie Imperium offers us protection and advancement. While this transition may be difficult, we must consider what is best for humanity's future." Her words were carefully chosen, appearing cooperative while containing none of the specific compliance terms the aliens demanded. In the audience, Ambassador Thomas Reed listened with a neutral expression. Only he and a select few knew that the president's left hand, hidden from camera view, tapped a specific rhythm against her leg, the signal that Operation Thunderbolt was proceeding as planned. Aboard the Lid Valkyrie vessel, High Commander Krull observed the human response with growing impatience. Their leaders speak of compliance, yet their military forces remain at high alert. He noted to his second-in-command. Their communications suggest disagreement among their governing bodies. As expected, replied Sub-Commander Verax. Their species is known for disorder and hesitation. They will delay until the deadline, then submit when faced with demonstration of our power. Krell nodded, watching the screens displaying various human cities. Prepare targeting solutions for their military installations. When the deadline expires, we will remove their capacity for resistance. What the Valkyrie didn't see was happening in plain sight. Throughout the world's cities, civilians followed emergency directives that appeared to be evacuation procedures. People moved in orderly lines to designated shelters, subway systems, underground parking structures, and basements of large buildings. The Valkyrie observed this as fear and preparation for submission. In reality, these movements masked a global military mobilization. Behind the crowds of civilians, special forces teams moved into position near critical infrastructure. Disguised as ordinary citizens, they carried advanced weapons in everyday bags and cases. Dr. Alex Morgan wiped sweat from his brow as he worked in a basement lab beneath London. Around him, a team of scientists made final adjustments to a network of quantum transmitters designed to interface with the alien communication systems. We're patched into their network, he announced. They're using a quantum entanglement system for instantaneous communication, but there's a pattern to their encryption. His colleague, Dr. Patel, looked up from her workstation. How long to crack it? Already done, Morgan replied with a grim smile. They're overconfident. They're using predictable mathematical progressions, advanced by our standards, but not as creative as they should be. He brought up a display showing the Valkyrie fleet's communication patterns. There's something else. Every 90 minutes, they perform a system-wide diagnostic that temporarily drops their defensive shields to recalibrate. This information was immediately relayed to Lunar Command. Meanwhile, in orbit, 6 seemingly ordinary communication satellites drifted slowly out of their normal positions. The movement was subtle, barely noticeable among the thousands of objects in Earth orbit. These were actually advanced weapons platforms disguised as aging communications equipment. As the deadline approached, General Davis coordinated from a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Status on civilian evacuations. 87% complete, sir, his aide reported. Major population centers are cleared from primary target zones. Davis nodded. And our friends upstairs. Commander Rice reports the fleet is ready, awaiting your signal. The general checked the countdown. 3 hours until the Valkyrie deadline. Send the coded activation. Tell Lunar Command. Thunderbolt commences at sunrise. On the view screens, the Valkyrie ships remained in position, their smooth hulls reflecting sunlight as Earth rotated beneath them. They hovered with supreme confidence, having encountered no meaningful resistance from the thousands of worlds they had previously conquered. But Earth was different. While the aliens looked down expecting submission, humanity was about to strike from a direction they never anticipated, from above and beyond. The trap was set. The hunters were about to become the hunted. The deadline arrived without Earth's formal surrender. On the command deck of the Valkyrie flagship, High Commander Krull's patience had run out. Commence demonstration strike, he ordered. Target their military installation in the region they call Nevada. Minimal yield, maximum visibility. Preparing weapons, Sub-Commander Verax confirmed, interfacing with the ship's systems. Firing solution locked. What happened next would be recorded in human history as the moment everything changed. As the Valkyrie weapon systems powered up, their fleet-wide shield diagnostic cycle began. The 90-minute recalibration that Dr. Morgan had discovered. For 8 crucial seconds, the alien vessels would be vulnerable. In that exact moment, the dark side of the moon erupted with activity. The engines of 40 warships ignited simultaneously, their hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Using gravity-assisted acceleration, they launched toward Earth at tremendous speed, appearing on Valkyrie sensors only when they were already halfway to their target. "High Commander," Verax shouted, multiple objects approaching from lunar orbit. Krell spun toward the tactical display, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm. "Impossible. Their species has no lunar military presence." The Defiance led the charge, its massive form cutting through space with unexpected agility. Commander Reyes stood on the bridge, watching Earth grow larger in the viewscreen. "All ships, maintain formation," she ordered. "Weapons hot. Execute attack pattern Omega on my mark." The human fleet split into 3 battle groups, each targeting different sections of the Valkyrie formation. They struck during the exact moment the alien shields were recalibrating. The first volley of missiles, incorporating technology reverse-engineered from the crashed alien scout ship, streaked across the void. These weren't conventional weapons but specialized disruptors designed to interfere with Valkyrie systems. On Earth, General Davis watched from the command bunker as the hidden orbital platforms activated, firing upward at the vulnerable undersides of the alien vessels. "Now," he ordered into his secure channel. Across the planet, disguised anti-orbital batteries revealed themselves, emerging from farm fields, desert sands, and ocean platforms. They fired in perfect synchronization, their energy beams slicing through the atmosphere toward the surprise invaders. Aboard the Valkyrie flagship, chaos erupted. Shields failing, multiple impacts across the fleet. Verax shouted as warning signals flashed across control panels. Human vessels approaching from lunar orbit, and from Earth's hidden facilities. Krell stared in disbelief at the tactical display showing the human counterattack. How could they hide such forces? Scan those vessels. The results only increased his alarm. The human ships incorporated technology the Valkyrie recognized, because it was their own, adapted, and in some cases improved upon. On the Defiance, Commander Reyes received the report she'd been waiting for. "All targets engage. Valkyrie communication network is disrupted. They cannot call for reinforcements." "Casualties?" she asked. "3 of our fighters damaged but crews safe," reported Captain Torres. "2 Valkyrie destroyers disabled. No Earth casualties reported." Reyes nodded. "Press the advantage. Target their command ship." The Defiance accelerated toward the largest Valkyrie vessel, its weapon systems locking onto specific vulnerabilities identified by Earth's intelligence network. Smaller human fighters executed complex attack patterns that confused the alien targeting systems. President Wilson watched the battle from her secure bunker, surrounded by military advisors and government officials. The orbital feeds showed human vessels swarming around the much larger alien ships, striking with precision rather than brute force. "They never expected this," she said quietly. "They thought we would just bow down." General Davis stood beside her, his expression grim but satisfied. "Humanity has never accepted chains, Madam President. Not from tyrants on Earth, and certainly not from tyrants among the stars." In orbit, the battle raged on. The Valkyrie attempted to regroup, but their formation was broken. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they faced not surrender, but defiance. The orbital battle transformed Earth's night sky. People emerged from shelters to witness streaks of light cutting across the darkness. Human and Valkyrie weapons exchanging fire in the void above. Parents lifted children onto shoulders, pointing at humanity's defenders as cheers erupted from crowds worldwide. Aboard the Defiance, Commander Reyes gripped her command chair as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. "Damage report," she shouted over the alert sirens. "Port shields at 40%, responded Lieutenant Parker at the tactical station. "Weapon systems still operational. 2 Valkyrie cruisers targeting our position." Reyes studied the tactical display. The initial surprise had given humanity a critical advantage, but the Valkyrie were adapting quickly. Their remaining vessels had formed a defensive perimeter, concentrating their firepower. "All ships, execute maneuver Delta 6, she ordered. "Focus fire on their flagship." The human fleet responded instantly, breaking into smaller attack groups that approached the Valkyrie from multiple vectors. Fighter squadrons led by Captain Ryan Jenkins created deliberate openings in the alien formation. Squadron 3, follow me in, Jenkins instructed his pilots as they dove toward the largest Valkyrie vessel. Target their weapon nodes precisely. Remember your training. The 12 fighters moved in perfect synchronization, weaving through enemy fire. Their smaller size made them difficult targets, while their adapted alien technology allowed them to strike with devastating accuracy. Inside the Valkyrie flagship, High Commander Krell struggled to maintain control as systems failed around him. How is this possible? He demanded, watching another of his ships crippled by human attackers. These primitive creatures should not have this technology. Commander, Verax reported, analysis confirms their weapons incorporate Valkyrie design principles. They've somehow adapted our own technology against us. Krell's eyes narrowed. The scout ship that disappeared 80 years ago. They must have recovered it. He turned to his weapons officer. Prepare the graviton cannon. Target their largest population center. But Commander, Verax objected. Our ship's power systems are damaged. Using the cannon cold. Do it, Krell hissed. They must learn the price of defiance. On Earth, Dr. Morgan monitored the battle from his underground lab, tracking Valkyrie communications. When he detected the power surge in the alien flagship, he immediately understood its significance. They're charging their main weapon, he reported urgently. Energy readings off the scale. General Davis responded immediately. All orbital platforms, concentrate fire on the Valkyrie flagship. Relay target coordinates to Commander Reyes. The Defiance received the warning just as the Valkyrie weapon began to glow with menacing energy. We can't let that weapon fire, Reyes stated, studying the tactical display. Making a quick decision, she opened a channel to Captain Marcus Wright on the destroyer Sentinel. Captain Wright, we need a strike team inside that vessel now. Can your boarding specialists breach their hull? Already suiting up, Commander, came the immediate response. Give us cover fire, and we'll handle the rest. As the Defiance and 2 support vessels engaged the Valkyrie flagship from the front, drawing their defensive fire, the Sentinel approached from below. 20 soldiers in specialized space combat suits launched from its airlock, using thruster packs to cross the void toward the alien vessel. Lieutenant Diane Foster led the boarding team, her heart pounding as they approached the massive ship. Remember the simulations, she told her team. We need to reach their power core and plant the disruptors. Everyone stays together. Using breaching charges designed specifically for Valkyrie hull material, they created an entry point near what intelligence suggested was an auxiliary maintenance bay. The team fought their way through confused alien defenders, who had never anticipated enemies inside their ship. Meanwhile, civilians on Earth watched breathlessly as the giant weapon on the Valkyrie flagship grew brighter, aiming toward the planet below. News feeds carried live coverage of the space battle, commentators falling silent as the moment of truth approached. The fate of Earth now rested with 20 soldiers fighting through an alien warship, racing against time as the graviton cannon reached critical charge. Lieutenant Foster and her boarding team fought through narrow corridors of the Valkyrie flagship, encountering increasingly desperate resistance. The alien crew, never trained for internal defense, fell back before the human advance. 3 minutes until their weapon reaches full charge, reported Sergeant Miller, checking the data on his tactical wrist display. Engineering should be through the next section. Foster nodded, her face grim behind her helmet visor. Stack up. Breach on my mark. The team positioned themselves beside a massive door marked with alien symbols. Their translation software identified it as the primary engineering access. Foster held up 3 fingers, then 2, then 1. The shaped charge blew the door inward. The team rushed through, weapons ready, to find themselves in a vast chamber dominated by a pulsing blue core. Valkyrie engineers turned in shock, reaching for weapons. Secure the room, Foster ordered as her soldiers engaged the defenders. Outside, The space battle had intensified. The Defiance took heavy damage as it kept the aliens' attention focused away from the boarding party. "Hull breach on Deck 4, reported Captain Torres. "Emergency bulkheads holding." Commander Reyes watched as another human vessel, the cruiser Intrepid, moved to shield the Defiance, taking multiple hits in the process. "Commander," came a transmission from the Intrepid's captain. "We'll hold them off. Just finish this." Reyes nodded, emotion briefly crossing her face. "All ships, continue pressing the attack. We need to buy Foster's team more time." Aboard the Valkyrie flagship, High Commander Krell received alarming reports. "Humans have breached engineering." Verax shouted. "They're attacking the power core." Krell's expression darkened. "Seal all sections. Divert security forces to engineering. The weapon must fire." In the engineering chamber, Foster's team had secured the immediate area, but lost 3 soldiers in the process. Technical specialist Zhang worked frantically at an alien console, applying the knowledge gained from decades studying the crashed scout ship. "Their systems are more advanced, but the architecture is similar," Zhang reported. "I can trigger a power surge that will disable the weapon, but it might cascade through their entire ship." Foster looked around at her remaining team, then at the countdown on her display showing less than a minute until the graviton cannon fired. "Do it," she ordered. "Then everyone fall back to the extraction point." Zhang nodded and input the final sequence. The blue core suddenly pulsed brighter, energy patterns shifting chaotically. "It's done. We have 30 seconds before the surge hits." The team retreated through the corridors, alien alarms blaring around them. 2 more soldiers fell covering their withdrawal, but Foster wouldn't leave them behind. She dragged one wounded teammate while Miller carried the other. On the bridge of his ship, Krell watched in horror as the weapon charging sequence abruptly terminated. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Power surge detected in the main core," a technician reported, panic evident in his voice. "Weapons systems shutting down. Shield generators failing." Verax turned to his commander. "The humans have disabled our primary systems. We're vulnerable." Outside, Commander Reyes observed the sudden change in the flagship's energy signature. "The boarding team did it. All vessels, concentrate fire on the Valkyrie flagship. Target their command center." The human fleet responded immediately, ships moving into attack formation as they unleashed a coordinated barrage against the suddenly defenseless alien vessel. On Earth, General Davis received confirmation that the graviton cannon had been neutralized. "Order our ground-based batteries to target any Valkyrie ships attempting to retreat. None leave Earth orbit." The remaining alien vessels, seeing their flagship crippled and their commander's strategy fail, attempted to regroup. But without central coordination, their formation collapsed under the relentless human assault. Foster's team reached their extraction point, a small maintenance airlock where their shuttle waited. As they sealed the hatch behind them, the flagship shuddered violently. "We're clear," Foster reported, heading home. From cities across Earth, people watched as the massive Valkyrie flagship erupted with internal explosions, its once smooth hull now scarred and broken. The smaller alien vessels began to scatter, pursued by human fighters that had once seemed impossibly outmatched. The impossible was happening. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was winning. 3 days after the battle began, it ended. The last functional Valkyrie vessel, a damaged cruiser trying to escape Earth's orbit, was intercepted by a squadron of human fighters led by Captain Jenkins. Unlike the others, this ship surrendered. Dawn broke over a changed world. Citizens emerged from shelters to skies no longer darkened by alien warships. Instead, the orbital paths above Earth were patrolled by humanity's own defenders, their hulls bearing fresh battle scars. In Geneva, world leaders gathered in emergency session while crowds celebrated outside. The mood was solemn despite the victory. The cost had been high. 8 human vessels lost, over 300 crew members dead or missing. Cities had suffered damage from debris and stray weapons fire, but Earth remained free. Commander Reyes stood before the assembled United Nations Security Council, still wearing her flight suit. The exhaustion of 3 days of continuous battle showed in her eyes, but her posture remained straight, unbending. "The immediate threat has been neutralized," she reported. 17 Valkyrie ships destroyed. 1 captured intact with surviving crew members. President Wilson stepped forward. "The world owes you and your forces a debt we can never repay, Commander." Rice shook her head slightly. "We did what we were built for, Madam President. But this isn't over." Dr. Morgan joined them at the central table, bringing data recovered from the captured Valkyrie vessel. The room fell silent as he displayed a star map showing hundreds of worlds marked with the Imperium symbol. "The Valkyrie control an empire spanning 47 star systems," he explained. "They've conquered at least 26 other species, all now serving as slave races, and according to their records, they've already sent a message to their home world about Earth." General Davis studied the map grimly. "How long until reinforcements arrive?" "Based on their communication logs, approximately 8 months," Morgan replied. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications became clear. Earth had won the battle, but the war was just beginning. Lieutenant Foster, now promoted to captain for her role in disabling the Valkyrie flagship, stepped forward from where she had been quietly observing. "With respect," she said, "we shouldn't wait for them to come to us again." All eyes turned to her. "The captured cruiser contains their navigation data, weapons systems, and faster-than-light technology that we can study. We have 8 months to prepare not just a defense, but a response." President Wilson considered this. "You're suggesting we take the fight to them?" "I'm suggesting," Foster replied carefully, "that the best defense may be to liberate those 26 enslaved worlds. Turn their empire against them." Commander Reyes nodded slowly. "The Valkyrie never expected resistance from us. They certainly won't expect us to appear in their home systems." Outside the council chambers, ordinary citizens already demonstrated humanity's resilience. In cities worldwide, cleanup crews worked alongside military personnel to repair damage. Scientists examined fallen alien technology. Children drew pictures of human ships protecting Earth. 1 week after the attack, the newly formed Earth Defense Council announced its decision. Humanity would not simply wait for the next invasion. The captured Valkyrie ship was already being studied, its technology integrated into a new generation of vessels. The lunar shipyards expanded, now working openly day and night. Commander Reyes stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Defiance, watching as construction teams swarmed over 5 new warships in the orbital dockyard. Each was larger than anything humans had built before, designed for deep space travel and prolonged combat. Captain Torres joined her, handing over a data tablet. "The first Liberation Fleet will be ready in 4 months. Volunteers are signing up faster than we can process them." Reyes nodded, looking down at Earth spinning peacefully below. The Valkyrie thought they found an easy conquest. Instead, they awakened something they never anticipated. "What's that, Commander?" She turned to face the stars, where the Valkyrie Empire waited, unaware of what was coming for them. "A united humanity," she said simply, "and we're just getting started."